Driving it home with Unlock MLS.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Driving at Home. We're here to unpack more of the data behind the Central Texas real estate market. Today I am joined by Vaike O'Grady, our market research advisor, here in the absence of Dr. Claire Knapp while she's on maternity leave at Unlock MLS. Vaike, we're so glad that you're here with us today.
I'm so glad to be here as well. Thank you, Emily.
You bet. Well, hey, we want to start by looking at the big picture. We're kind of at that halfway point in the year. That is hard to believe that we have hit all the way through the June stats. Let's start at a federal or kind of national level. What's happening with the economy at large to this point in the year?
Well, I would characterize it as a mixed bag. I mean, consumer confidence is improving. It's still low, sort of lower than we would like, but it's improving. People are cautiously optimistic about where the economy is going. But, you know, in our industry, mortgage rates are important and they're still sticky. And, you know, as long as they're hovering between 6 and 7%, people aren't feeling especially excited.
Yeah.
And in fact, we also came off a June jobs report where the numbers were down pretty significantly, and they were even revised down in May and June. And so that has people a little bit antsy.
Yeah. Now that may help us with our friends at the Fed who tend to not love it when our jobs are down, and maybe that helps motivate some shift in the interest rate at that level at least. You know, the one thing that we do talk about with the interest rates, though, that I think has been helpful is that we have stabilized in them quite a bit. So buyers sort of know what they're working with. They don't love that they're working with those interest rates, but they know to expect that they're not going to budge very much, if at all, through the remainder of this year. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I think that hangover idea of being at 3% is slowly going away.
The further we get from it, the less real it was.
Right, right. And the gap between what people who are in their homes now and what current mortgage rates are is also shrinking a bit. So it's not quite so dramatic a lock-in rate as there used to be.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's not all good, but it's not all great, or it's not all bad either, which is important to understand. And there is kind of some balance and equilibrium in what we're experiencing.
That's fair. I think that's accurate. And I think also we've been in sort of a holding pattern during the summer.
Yeah.
But, you know, the Fed meets in September, and there's a lot of expectation that the Fed will move this September given what's happening with inflation and with jobs.
I mean, I don't think any of us knew or cared about the Fed nearly in the extent that we do.
Right. Who's Jerome Powell?
These last few years, they've really amped up their profile, which is interesting to some degree. But yeah, critical that we continue to kind of keep a watchful eye on those periods and instances where they meet and discuss. And I think the narrative and rhetoric of their discussion is important for us, obviously, as the markets react. So with that, let's turn our eyes a little bit towards Austin and our own local economy. What's standing out for you in terms of our mid-year point housing stats? What are you thinking about as you're kind of assessing where the market is at 6 months in?
Yeah. Well, I think we're better than we were. Things were a little bit tough for us in first quarter. Yeah. Inventory is certainly rising, and so we're watching that. And if you've got a seller who's got a home on the market, you know that. There's more opportunities for buyers. Good for them.
Yeah.
A little bit tougher for sellers. They need to be more flexible in their pricing, perhaps. Overall, closed sales in the Austin market in June rose nearly 3% year over year. So we had nearly 23 closings in June, and the median price was holding steady.
Yeah.
Now, as we enter July and look at those numbers, and we're just starting to get a sneak peek, it looks like pricing is going to decline again. So again, sellers need to stay flexible on their pricing.
Right. Yeah. I think, you know, this is a hard point for the agents who are rooted in the data, have a lot of awareness and not the most emotional attachment to the potential money that the seller, him or herself, has. And that's stressful for them. But I think our goal is to try to empower you, the agent, to have the context that you need to help motivate the right move for the seller to price right through the use of Unlock Stats, the labs that you're going to continue to offer on our behalf, where members can come in and ask really nitty-gritty, nuanced questions about the places where their specific listings are even, and kind of get into that like real nitty-gritty of the stats. Use those tools to your best advantage so that you're helping to kind of have rational and rooted conversation, because you understand that for your seller, this is such a big deal and feels like a loss to them as compared to what they might have made on that property even just a few years ago.
Right, there is that hangover for the sellers too,
Yeah,
right? They heard
yeah.
their neighbor sold their home for X dollars 2 years ago, and now they're nowhere near that number, and that's hard.
I think too, when there's more inventory, what they hear is my neighbor's listed for X dollars. Maybe I too could get X dollars. And it's sort of blind leading the blind. If the one listed is listed out of range, and then we see all of these other listings come in out of range, we're perpetuating bad pricing across an entire marketplace potentially. So agents, you need to hang in there to continue to have good contextualized conversation with your sellers about what right looks like in terms of pricing. We hope that the addition of the flex listing tools, so the new flex listings, gives you a place to kind of play with price with your seller without being dinged with days on market and dinged with price adjustments and all of the things that come with a full active listing. The intent really there is to give you a space to kind of float the thing that maybe is unrealistic if that's your seller's wish. Hold on to that listing through the duration of your conversation with them about what reasonable pricing might be, and then get that sucker full freight and listed with all of the active exposure of a full listing and get it sold for them. So
that's such a huge benefit at this time in the market when there's so much uncertainty to be able to have that flexibility.
Right. That's the point. That's the purpose in the naming and certainly the purpose in the listing type. So we hope that that's another tool that we're bringing to bear. So as we're looking towards the remainder of 25, do you feel like we're recovering from the slow start that we had in this first 6 months? What do you kind of see looking forward and from a year in total perspective now?
Well, year to date through June, sales were down about 5.3%, but that gap is narrowing. So if we stay on track, we're at about 15,000 sales through June. We'll be pretty close to 2024 numbers.
That's impressive when you consider the first quarter down essentially double digits year over year in total sales. I mean, that's a significant increase from where we began.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we acknowledge that summer is usually slower. But again, if we see some movement from the Fed in September, things could start to light up again. And there have been a lot of buyers on the sidelines who haven't been able to make it happen, who will come back to the market. That's my belief.
I like a light up for the fall. I think my agents will too. What are we seeing in the rental market? I've heard you say that you're seeing some movement there.
Yeah, leasing is on the upswing. Year-to-date leasings are up about 3.6%, and rents are holding steady.
Great.
New under contract leases rose from about 5% from January through June. And that's a reflection of the ongoing affordability challenges. But it's also a reflection of people still coming to move to Austin, right? So when you come here, it's very unusual to just buy a house right off the bat. Especially in today's environment, you're more likely to lease for a year and sit on that sideline until September, we hope.
Don't sit too long, buyers. I think that's another use case where we've seen the application of the new flex listing too, is a seller or owner who is willing to take a lease, but also wants to kind of hold out the opportunity for that potential buyer on the buy side. So they let it sit in flex while they're more intentionally looking for a long-term lease client. So that's another business opportunity for you guys to kind of offer different routes and solutions for your seller depending on the circumstance of that owner. Cool. Okay, so I think I heard you say today, and I was shocked because I just hadn't thought about our growth in this way as we've felt the kind of slowdown that we've experienced over the last couple of years. But we are still on track to double in size by 2060. Is that right?
That's my understanding. That's
where
based
are these people going, and more importantly, where their car's going.
Right. I can't do anything about roadways in Austin, and the reality is that most of them will go outside of the city center. Correct.
Right.
So we've got Bastrop County that's expected to grow by 100% or more.
Crazy.
Caldwell, same thing. Hayes, especially, is going to grow about 300% is the projection. So that demarcation between Austin and San Antonio continues to get a bit fuzzier.
Yeah.
And San Antonio market's actually up in terms of new home starts versus the rest of Texas. So we're seeing that sort of bleed into Central Texas happen as well. And the outskirts is where people are going, one, for affordability. And also because they're great places to live. Yeah.
I mean, I think of, we have been so centered in the corridor of I-35 between Austin and San Antonio. But now as 130 has become such a productive component of our commuter travel, of our access across the region, we're seeing those eastern counties, north to south, continue to flood. And obviously with the addition of the Samsung factory out
Yeah.
in Rockport, or excuse me, in Taylor, then I know that we'll continue to see expansion east like
Yeah.
that. And there's lots of land and lots of opportunity out there. So
Right.
it's a good time also if your business is kind of sticky and it's not moving as fast, for you to really get to know those areas and educate yourself, build your competency geographically in those areas, which we think you can also do with the Unlock Stats tool, just to kind of get to know the market out there a little bit, and just be out there and kind of get to know those areas ahead of their boom potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And Unlock Stats can be a good stepping stone. You get the data that
Yeah.
kind of says, I got to go check this out, and then get in your car and go look at it, because there's nothing like being there and
Yeah.
actually seeing it on the ground,
Yep,
right?
totally.
Yeah.
Come east and see what we got. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about international demand. That is something that has certainly grown. I think intuitively we know that in Austin, that it's desirable and sort of interesting from an international standpoint. We have things like the addition of F1, the professional soccer team, and the global viewers of soccer. What are we seeing on the ground in terms of real action on that front?
Well, we do our international study. We did one in 2024, and that pointed to international buyers being a prominent force in Austin. NAR just updated a national study, and we see that that's the case as well.
Okay.
So while the overall U.S. housing market has declined, it's actually reached its lowest annual sales numbers in 30 years.
Wow.
So I mean that's saying something.
Yeah.
But the reemergence of the international home buyer is pretty notable. So dollar volume, total dollar volume across the country rose to 56 billion, which is 33% higher than it was the year before.
Wow, that's huge. I think, it is kind of interesting, and we want to culturally keep an eye on, from a values perspective, on maintaining that access to that opportunity and the dream of home ownership for Americans, obviously, but we need to recognize and be willing and open to the fact that we are open to business on a global stage, and certainly Austin is as well. And we want to enable agents to be successful in that through our global programming and helping educate them on the nuances of transactions with international buyers, because they can be a little different as well.
Absolutely. So wonderful that you have that resource here with your global
We're
group.
trying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, who's buying here right now? What are those primary countries of interest for the international buyers buying in Austin?
Well, the top 5 kind of tend to remain the same. They shift positions from time to time, but it's China, it's Mexico, it's India, it's Canada, and Brazil. And most of them are going to either Travis or Williamson County.
Okay.
You got to remember that Central Texas is pretty affordable when you look at other sort of tech-heavy markets that
Yeah.
are attractive to those
Sure.
buyers. San Diego or Washington, D.C. or Boston. We're still a value, even though for us locals it feels a little bit uncomfortably high.
Yeah.
It's not the case for an international
Yeah.
buyer.
And good news for our agents in Unlock MLS who are considering working with buyers inbound from Brazil and Mexico is that we now have this instance of the Omni MLS adjacent to your marketplace, where you can go in and look at many of those Latin American country marketplaces. It's their MLS. It's just a second instance of it in your application. So the thing that you're used to searching in Matrix. And it gives you some insight into the kind of market that they might be coming from, which I think can be helpful, because you can kind of meet them where they are. As they're coming into this market, you can say, I recognize what you've come from, and here's what you can expect here.
Yeah.
That is a great value. So we're really excited about having turned on the Omni MLS access this summer, and we'll continue to kind of help you guys navigate how you use that real practically every day in your business. But with 2 of those 5 top countries being in Latin America, I think it's important to know that you've got access to that. So
Absolutely.
That's
what
cool.
a huge benefit.
what are the big barriers for international buyers right now? Is financing an issue? What else do you see?
Yeah, financing and transferring funds can be tricky. About a third of them pay in cash. But that's a reason to have a knowledgeable realtor on their side to help them figure out the nuances of how do you get approved and financing in the United States.
Yeah.
So it can happen, and if you're a savvy realtor looking for new opportunities, explore the global partnerships.
Yeah, what a great time to build out that niche. And I know we've got a team, Christine Wren is on our staff, who is incredibly knowledgeable about it. Happy to take your phone calls on that too. She would love to connect you with our global ambassadors. Okay, so we're looking ahead to the rest of 2025. You're thinking we might be on track to close out the total number of sales year over year to match or somewhere near where we were in 24. What else should we expect through the remainder of this year?
Well, everyone's been watching mortgage rates for a long time. So fingers
Like a hawk.
crossed. Yeah, we get some relief in September, and that could help. I am watching inventory growth, and we've got more inventory on the market, which means more choices for buyers, but it also becomes more challenging for sellers.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate inventory shifting downward in any meaningful way for a little bit.
Yep.
So people who've been sitting on the sidelines now may have to make a move because of life changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we may have more inventory on the market, and that opens up the opportunity to have more business as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's still a price-sensitive market. Sellers need to remain flexible through the fall, but I'm optimistic that we're going to at least hit 2024 numbers this year.
Yeah. What's your primary advice for realtors as they're thinking about how to lean into their business through the fall?
Well, they should come to Unlock Stats.
Yes, they should
and
do all the
Market
things
Data
that Unlock
Lab.
and Able offer.
Right, right. On August 19th, we'll do another Market Data Lab virtually.
I will.
And,
I'll put an extra little plug for that. I think it's important to understand that those really are lab experiences. They're places where you can sit shoulder to shoulder with the team, or hop on Zoom and Zoom shoulder to shoulder with the team when they're held virtually, to ensure that like your very specific question about your little end of the market is something that you really understand well. So I don't want you to think, agents, that that's just another class where you're sitting with 50 people and it's not as interactive as it can be. The intention really is for it to be a lab-like experience and something that you can really engage in. So
Absolutely.
I'll plug you up there.
Well, we look forward to seeing you. Keep watching the data. We'll keep delivering the data, and you'll be a stronger realtor for it.
Absolutely. Well, Vaike, thank you so much for your time and expertise with us. We're glad to have you as a partner. And thank you guys for continuing to pay attention to what we're offering. We're looking forward to closing out the end of this year strong. We've got 6 months to go, folks, and we want to help you do that in a way that makes you a success in your business and a success for your clients.
Thanks for having me, Emily.
You bet.